Good afternoon from Calgary, Alberta, where it is the middle of the night. Instead of risking a sleepy live presentation, I've decided to pre-record and to be available for questions and discussion immediately afterwards. In thinking about the panel theme today, key gaps in research needs for Arctic research, I've decided to focus my thoughts on how we can address this theme from the perspective of Arctic Indigenous communities. At the outset, I want to emphasize that I do not speak on behalf of Indigenous communities, but rather from my own experience of co-developing research to address community research priorities in Inuit Nunangat, the Inuit homeland in Canada. My relationship with Arctic Indigenous communities predates the 2018 National Inuit Strategy on Research, produced by the National Inuit Organization in Canada called Inuit Tapirikanatami, or ITK. However, the document certainly reflects how I have learned to work with Inuit communities and co-design my research initiatives. ITK's document is essential reading for anyone who is conducting research in the Arctic, especially in Inuit Nunangat. Why? Well, first of all, it highlights the glaring social inequalities that exist in many Inuit Nunangat communities, from housing overcrowding and education levels to food insecurity and health services and outcomes. These are startling inequalities, as you can see on the slide here. And as I'm sure you can imagine, it is hard for anyone to focus on research when they are hungry, homeless, or sick. So addressing these inequalities will also help contribute to effective research. The strategy also argues why research is a tool for creating social equality and why Inuit must be partners in the governance of Inuit Nunangat research. These have been important takeaway points for me from this report, and hopefully will be takeaway messages for everyone in this session. The report also describes 5 priority areas for action to advance respectful and beneficial research for all Inuit. These are: first, advance Inuit governance in research; second, enhance the ethical conduct of research; third, align funding with Inuit research priorities; 4, ensure Inuit access, ownership, and control over data and information; and last, build capacity in Inuit Nunangat. I now want to illustrate how my research initiative, called SmartICE, has adopted these priority action areas into its operations and activities as an illustration of how Arctic research priorities and knowledge needs can be addressed in respectful and beneficial ways. By listening to communities, they have told us that ice travel safety is critically important for them. Ice is not only a hunting platform and travel highway, it is central to Inuit identity and culture. But climate change is making ice travel more dangerous, making the ice thinner, rougher, more unpredictable. SmartICE began as a response to this community need for ice monitoring technology to help mitigate ice travel risk. We worked closely with 2 pilot communities, Nain in Natsiavut and Mitamatalik in Nunavut on the north coast of Baffin Island. With them, we developed technology that addressed their ice information needs. Once our SmartICE service got more widely known, we evolved from a community university government partnership to a not-for-profit work integration social enterprise in order to respond to communities that needed our services and valued our approach. Why did we choose a social enterprise business model? This model that emphasizes positive community impact is consistent with Inuit societal values, such as caring for the environment and community and being innovative and resourceful. And this is what communities recommended to us as well. So what do we do? SmartICE empowers Indigenous communities with the tools and training they need to monitor their own ice conditions. It combines Inuit knowledge and innovative monitoring technology to help make ice travel safer. Our technology consists of a stationary ice thickness sensor called the Smart Buoy that sends information back daily to the community via satellite. You can see one in the ice here on the bottom right. We also produce a mobile ice thickness sensor that provides information in real time to the operator driving the skidoo as they travel community routes, and also as a color-coded track of ice thickness for the community. This map is available on the web, smartphone, as posters in the local store, and on Facebook. Over the past 3 to 4 years, SmartICE has expanded to more than 22 other communities in Inuit Nunangat. So how does SmartICE address the 5 priority action areas of the National Inuit Strategy on Research? SmartICE advances Inuit governance and research by creating community management committees where we operate. These committees are made up of Inuit ice experts from local organizations, elders, hunters, and youth. The committees make decisions about how SmartICE operates in the community. It proposes new research projects and advises us on new technology developments. At the board level of SmartICE, 50% of current directors identify as Indigenous and are Northern residents, with the expectation that this will increase to 100% in the next couple of years. SmartICE builds capacity in Inuit Nunangat by training Inuit operators in each of our service communities. But instead of using Western training methods, we employ holistic, culturally contextualized approaches that build on Inuit knowledge and employ Inuit ways of knowing and learning. Our training is delivered by Inuit operation leads who live in Inuit Nunangat and can deliver training in their own language in Inuktitut. We also train you to be the producers of our technology, assembling one of our ice thickness sensors at our Northern Technology Production Center in Nain, Nunatsiavut. Avid. Once again, we just don't train the youth technically, but provide them with a range of hard and soft employment skills, traditional land skills, and work experience to prepare them for new labor markets. We are also developing a new training curriculum to address evolving needs for communities. For example, the Canadian Ice Service ice charts shown here on the left are designed with shipping in mind, not on-ice travel by Inuit. They are not produced at the spatial or temporal scales to support the information needs of ice travel. So instead, we are co-designing Inuit-made ice travel safety maps that combine Inuit knowledge and observations, SmartICE monitoring data, and satellite image interpretation by trained Inuit staff. For the first time this past ice season, our trainees made ice maps for their communities in their own language and using their own terminology and knowledge. SmartICE ensures Inuit access, ownership, and control over data and information by having our community management committees control the SmartICE monitoring data and any products that are created from our co-produced projects. For example, this ownership is clearly identified on maps of Inuit knowledge as shown here. We also include our Inuit researchers or community management committee members in co-authorship. See the example here of the management committee for the community of Mitamatlik called Sakumiat. They're listed here in our recent paper on the Inuit Sea Ice Climate Atlas. Also, we apply for research licenses from Inuit governments and research centers for our work. Although SmartICE is not a funding agency, it takes advantages of new opportunities that support the National Inuit Strategy on Research to align funding with Inuit research priorities. For example, the recently announced Canada Inuit Nunangat United Kingdom Arctic Research Program, which is quite a mouthful, It was guided by the National Inuit Strategy on Research and sought to fund projects that featured strong Inuit involvement and were meaningful for Inuit Nunangat communities. This represented a perfect opportunity for SmartICE to submit a proposal that directly benefited Inuit communities through safer ice travel and was led by Inuit principal investigators and comprised 50% Inuit investigators, probably for the first time ever in one of these international funding competitions. Before finishing, I wanted to mention that it's important for a social enterprise working in Inuit communities to be able to report on its social impact, both in quantitative and qualitative ways. Here on the left is a report card for our operation in the territory of Nunavut for the ice season 2020-21. We are able to show Nunavut communities how much we are training and employing their Inuit youth to operate ice monitoring equipment in their communities, for example. On the right, we can also document the feedback we get from members of our community management committees on how we are making a difference for ice travel safety. If you would like to learn more about these approaches to supporting Inuit self-determination research, take a look at an essay I wrote on turning research inside out in the Newfoundland Quarterly in 2016, and a more recent paper in the journal Arctic Science on changing the role of non-Indigenous research partners to support Inuit self-determination in research, led by Catherine Wilson. We call it the Sequomiat model. Thank you very much for your attention this afternoon, and I'm available to now answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Trevor, for such an inspiring talk. We will have more questions for you on the chat, but I have a small question for you right now. You mentioned SmartICE, how you've managed to co-design a project with the local communities, and you are tackling a local hazard that's climate related. So as we need to design more of these type of services for local communities that are really adapted for them in a way that they understand it best, as you mentioned with how you adapted maps so that they would be most familiar to the community. What do you think are our challenges? What were your lessons learned in trying to bring together technology, science, local knowledge, and in general bringing this in an accessible way to communities?
I think learning to listen to the communities is an important part of the process, and always going back to the community, sometimes with one-way tickets, not planning to leave until you're ready to leave and have built trust and relationships. So some of the communities we may have visited 20 times over the last 4 or 5 years. So it's really about meeting them where they are at and understanding and listening to their priorities, and then having them help design those priorities that they would like to see addressed. And of course, culture and language is always a very important part of this process. So as you can see, even with the technology, we always that is designed never to replace Inuit traditional knowledge of safe sea ice travel. It augments it. And that's as we heard in a presentation earlier in the previous session, I mean, Inuit, whether in Alaska or Canada, were the first scientists and have the longest record of, for instance, sea ice observations of any institute around the world. They have been monitoring the ice for centuries, if not longer. And we need to recognize that knowledge for its own scientific merit and be able to not necessarily integrate that with scientific knowledge. They're different worldviews, they have different sorts of characteristics, but we've tried to show how we have done that by creating products by them for them, and that's a key part of it.
Yeah, thank you very much. We do have, we have a question asking you for the links to the articles, which if you're kindly enough to put that in the chat for us, and then we will say goodnight to you in 4 a.m. in Calgary, Canada, so we can move on to our next presentation. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.